Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way, YouTube will keep showing you more stories like this. Now, let's begin. I've always been proud of my ability to work tirelessly. 15 years of driving trucks cross-country has forged in me an endurance few people possess. But now, after everything that happened, I realized that pride was just a dangerous thing that could kill me at any moment. I'll never forget that fateful night. It was a long haul from Missouri to Oregon, passing through North Dakota, Montana, and Texas. The company offered to split the trip between two drivers, but I refused. I wanted to prove I could complete the trip on time, and maybe even earlier than expected. The highway was deserted at 1 a.m. The summer night sky was clear, stars twinkling like thousands of eyes looking down. I had been driving continuously for nearly 18 hours, only stopping for gas and bathroom breaks. Strong black coffee wasn't working anymore, and the caffeine pills were starting to lose their effect. My eyes stung, my neck and shoulders ached, but I still tried to focus on the road ahead. Just a few more hours, I told myself, trying to fight off the drowsiness slowly taking over my body. The deserted stretch of road stretched out before me, flanked by dense pine forests, black as ink. The radio had started getting staticky since I left the last small town, and now it was just annoying white noise. I turned it off, leaving a silence broken only by the loud rumble of the truck's engine. Maybe that's when I started losing focus. My eyelids felt heavy, and I had to constantly shake my head, slap my face to keep myself awake. A few times I even turned on the cabin light and rolled down the window to let the cold air hit my face. But no matter how hard I tried, my body was gradually succumbing to the need for rest. I remember dozing off for a moment, maybe just a few seconds, but enough for the truck to drift out of its lane. The sound of tires grinding against the median strip woke me up, and I quickly steered back, heart pounding in my chest. "Wake up, Kevin. Just a short distance left," I encouraged myself. I decided to stop at the next rest stop to wash my face and get more coffee. But according to the map, the nearest rest stop was about a 45-minute drive away. I needed to find a way to stay awake until then. It was right then that I saw something lying in the middle of the road ahead. At first, I thought it was just a piece of cloth blown by the wind, or maybe a plastic bag. But as the truck got closer, under the headlights, I realized it was a dress. A pale purple dress, lying stretched out on the road surface, as if someone had just dropped it. I slowed down, wondering why there was a dress in the middle of a deserted highway at midnight like this. As the truck slowed, I saw something else ahead, a small pair of shoes, children's shoes, lying about 10 yards from the dress. This wasn't normal. And then, as the truck continued forward, I started seeing more things. A small pink jacket, a pair of jeans, a t-shirt, all children's clothes, scattered on the road like pieces of a horrifying puzzle. I stopped the truck, my heart pounding in my chest. What happened here? Had a child been in an accident? Or maybe someone just dropped a bag of clothes from their car? Logic told me to turn on the hazard lights, grab the flashlight from the glove compartment, and carefully open the truck door. The cold night air filled the cabin, making me shiver. I jumped down from the truck, closed the door, and locked it. My footsteps echoed on the pavement as I walked towards the purple dress. I bent down to pick it up, feeling the soft cotton fabric under my calloused fingers. It was the dress of a child around 8 to 10 years old, with small floral patterns printed on the purple fabric. It was clean and untorn, as if it had been worn not long ago. I continued following the trail of clothes, picking up each item one by one and checking the surroundings. No signs of an accident or a struggle, no bloodstains. As I picked up the last jacket, I heard a noise from the edge of the forest, a crackling sound like a branch breaking under weight. I whipped around, shining the flashlight towards the sound, but only saw darkness and towering pine trees. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice echoing in the silent forest night. No answer, but I felt like I was being watched. I started backing towards the truck, keeping my eyes fixed on the edge of the woods. That's when I heard a child's scream, echoing from deep within the forest. A blood-curdling scream, full of fear. "Help me!" I turned towards the sound, flashlight trembling in my hand. "Where are you?" I yelled, but only my own echo answered. And then a second scream rang out, weaker this time, as if the child was being dragged further into the woods. "Please, help!" Without much thought, I started running towards the scream. If a child was in danger, I couldn't just stand by. I ran into the forest, the flashlight illuminating a faint path, damp leaves underfoot, my heart pounding, breath ragged. "Where are you?" I called out, trying to pinpoint where the scream came from. But as I went deeper into the woods, the screaming stopped, replaced by a suspicious silence. And then I heard giggling, whispering, and the sound of metal scraping. I stopped, turned off the flashlight, and stood silently, listening. In the dim moonlight filtering through the canopy, I could see a clearing ahead, a group of people standing around something. 3 or 4 dark figures, one of them holding a large object. I squinted in the darkness, trying to see more clearly, and then I saw it. A large speaker, the kind used for outdoor events, and next to it, a man holding a recording device. The scream wasn't real. It was played from the speaker. It was a trap. Terrified, I started backing away, trying not to make a sound. But in the dark, I didn't see the branch behind me, and when I stepped on it, a loud crack echoed. A flashlight beam shone directly into my face, blinding me. "It's there! Get it!" a man's voice yelled. Without hesitating another second, I turned and ran for my life, stumbling over roots and broken branches. Behind me were angry shouts and the sound of branches breaking as they gave chase. When I finally saw the asphalt road and the truck ahead, I felt like I'd been born again. I sprinted towards the truck, fumbling for the key in my pocket with trembling fingers. I had just opened the truck door when I heard a shout from behind. "You're not allowed to know. You won't tell anyone." I turned back and saw one man running out of the woods, followed by 2 others. One of them was holding something long and shiny, maybe a gun or a metal bar. I jumped into the truck, slammed the door shut, and locked it immediately. With shaking hands, I tried to insert the key into the ignition, but it took 3 attempts to succeed. The engine roared to life with its familiar growl just as the first man reached the truck. He pounded hard on the window, his face contorted with anger. "Open the door!" he yelled, his voice partly drowned out by the engine noise. I hit the gas, the truck lurched forward, but before I got far, I heard a loud bang and felt something hit the passenger side window. The glass shattered, sending fragments flying into my face. I felt the sting as my skin was cut. Not daring to stop, I kept pressing the accelerator, the heavy truck speeding up on the deserted highway. In the rearview mirror, I could see the figures growing smaller, finally disappearing into the night. I drove like crazy, not daring to slow down for even a second. Cold wind blasted through the broken window. Blood from the small cuts on my face ran down my neck, but I didn't care. I just wanted to get away from there as fast as possible. It took nearly an hour of continuous driving before I felt safe enough to call 911. I stopped at a gas station, my hands still trembling as I dialed. I gave my information, and the dispatcher promised police would arrive within 20 minutes. The police arrived. They took my statement, photographed the broken truck window, and the cuts on my face. "Can you describe them?" an officer asked. I shook my head. It was dark, and everything happened so fast. I just saw 3 or 4 men, but I couldn't see their faces clearly. After completing the report, they gave me a phone number to call if I remembered anything else, and said they would patrol that area. They also advised me to go to the hospital to get my injuries checked, but I refused. I just wanted to continue my journey, deliver the load, and get back home. 4 years have passed. I've never taken that route again, always choosing other routes, even if they take longer. The police haven't found the people who attacked me, and I never found out their real purpose. Was it a robbery or some sick game? I'm Nathan, 30, a long-haul truck driver. That day, I pulled into a rest stop in South Dakota at 2 a.m. Snow was falling heavily outside my windshield. After 14 continuous hours of driving from Denver, I desperately needed to rest. My eyes were stinging, and I could barely keep them open. This rest stop only had an old gas station and an abandoned building. I turned off the engine, ready to catch some sleep in my cab. I felt like I could fall asleep the moment I closed my eyes. Suddenly there was a knock. Before I could even react, another knock came. 3 quick knocks, then 3 more. I looked through the side window. A young woman was standing out there. She was shivering in a thin jacket. "Excuse me, please open the door." I still hadn't responded when the girl suddenly yelled, "He's coming." I need to hide. I didn't open the door. You shouldn't trust anyone easily on deserted roads like this. Listen, I'll call the police for you. You can use this blanket of mine for now. But before I could finish, the girl pounded on the door. "No, he'll find me. Please, I just need a place to hide." I observed her more closely. Her eyes weren't scanning her surroundings. Her expression didn't look like someone frantically searching for shelter. She kept staring directly at me without blinking. "Where did you come from? Where's your car?" "I walked from town. My car broke down," she replied instantly. The nearest town was 15 miles away. No way she could have walked that far in a snowstorm like this without freezing to death. I hesitated for a few seconds, then decided to pull out my phone and call 911. The girl suddenly stopped banging on the door, standing silently and watching me. Her face no longer showed panic. Instead, her eyes gleamed with anger. A few seconds later, the girl turned her back and walked straight into the darkness. I sat there bewildered, my heart suddenly pounding. What just happened? I started the engine, deciding to leave and find another rest stop, but the engine wouldn't turn over. I tried again, but nothing. Suddenly, a scratching sound came from underneath the truck. I tried to stay calm. I grabbed my flashlight and opened the cab door. Wind and snow blew in, making me shiver. I stepped down and shone the flashlight under the truck. 2 eyes reflected the light back at me. A man was lying face down underneath, his clothes soaking wet and dirty. He smiled when he was discovered. "Hey, Jake, I know what his name is." I recoiled in shock. How did he know my name? Little Sarah did a good job. She kept you here long enough. He crawled out from under the truck, his movement slow and eerie. I just stood there, staring at him in a panic, unable to do anything else. In his hand was a large pair of pliers. I understood now. The girl wasn't a victim, but his accomplice. He had cut the starter wires so my truck wouldn't start, while the girl's job was to distract me. "What do you want?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want your truck, and I need you to be quiet. This truck is perfect for transporting. No one suspects an honest truck driver. I can go across the country without getting checked." "Transporting what?" He chuckled menacingly. I looked around for a weapon, then remembered I only had a wrench in the cab. "Why me?" I asked, trying to buy time. "Jake Morrison, 52 years old, lives in Omaha. No family, few friends. Most of the time, he's on the road in his truck." At my astonished expression, he continued, "I've been following you for 3 weeks." He stepped closer with the pliers. "Now, hand over the keys." I took the keys out, but I didn't give them to him. Instead, I threw them as far as I could into the blizzard. "You idiot!" he roared and lunged at me. I dodged him and ran towards the cab. He pursued me, but the snow made him slip. I managed to grab the wrench. When he lunged again, I swung the wrench hard at his head. He fell into the snow, bleeding. But that blow wasn't enough to subdue him. His struggling form, getting back up with a blood-stained smile, filled me with even more disgust and panic. I had no choice. I had to defend myself. I kept hitting him until he stopped moving. After a while, I stood there trembling, not from the cold, but from fear. After a few minutes, I managed to take some deep breaths and regain my composure. I opened the hood and reconnected the starter wires with duct tape from my toolbox. The truck started. I checked my dash cam. I needed evidence for the police. The video showed Sarah standing outside the truck door, her acting perfect. Then the scene of him crawling out from under the truck. I drove away from the rest stop immediately, heading towards the nearest town. My name is Tom. I'm a truck driver working for a logistics company in Florida. I had just started this job, not my first in the industry. I used to work in a different state. That day was a Wednesday. I was delivering a shipment of electronics to Atlanta. The radio was playing country music, and I was sipping coffee from a rest stop I'd passed earlier. I was about 20 miles from the delivery address when my phone buzzed. There was a message. Urgent change of delivery address. New location, 1847 Riverside. Customer requested. Shipping depth. I slowed the truck down, a little confused by the sudden change, but I followed the new instructions. Maybe the system was just updating late. I was still new and didn't want to raise a fuss over something small. So I turned the wheel and followed the GPS toward the new drop-off point. The road led into an old industrial area, low buildings in rows, many shut down. Some signs were broken, others completely missing. The sun was setting fast, and shadows were swallowing the streets. The address brought me to a large warehouse. No lights were on. I parked the truck out front and stepped out. Two men walked out from the shadows beside the building. One was tall and skinny, wearing a wrinkled blue shirt. The other was shorter, heavier, with a baseball cap pulled low. Neither of them wore any kind of company uniform. "Are you the driver, Tom?" the tall one asked. "Yeah," I replied. "Who are you with?" "Southern Logistics," the guy in the cap said. "We're here to receive the shipment." I had never heard of Southern Logistics. Usually, the client sends a manager with paperwork to sign and inspect the goods. The place looked half abandoned. It didn't feel right. "I'll need to see an authorization form," I said. The tall man reached into his pocket, glancing sideways at his partner. After a few seconds of silence from them, I decided to handle things myself first. "Let me just make a quick call to confirm," I said, and turned back toward my cab. I climbed in, locked the door, and called my main dispatcher. "Why are you in Riverside?" Her voice was utterly surprised. "I got a text message changing the delivery address," I replied. "What text message?" "I didn't send anything, and we don't have any customers in Riverside for this trip." My heart pounded. I quickly pulled up my phone to look at the text again. It was from an unknown number. I'd been duped. I hung up and looked outside. The two men were standing right next to my truck. The big guy had already opened the back of the trailer. I started the engine and laid on the horn. "Get out of the way," I yelled through the window. They didn't move. I started backing up, not caring if they moved or not. When they saw I wasn't slowing down, they jumped out of the way. I sped out of the industrial park, my heart hammering in my chest. In my rearview mirror, I saw a black car turn on its headlights and speed after me. The intense chase lasted about 30 minutes. I was trying to focus on driving while fumbling for my phone to call the police. I'm a truck driver, and someone's chasing me on I-95 near Savannah. They just tried to trick me into delivering to a fake address. "Can you make it to the nearest gas station?" the dispatcher asked. "I'll try." I took the next exit and drove straight to the closest gas station. The black car slowed down, then turned around and headed the other way. I sat in my truck, shaking and breathing hard. 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled in. A serious-looking officer got out and introduced himself as Officer Adam. I showed him the fake text message on my phone. Adam frowned as he looked at the number. "Tom, do you know anything unusual about the cargo you're carrying?" "Just electronics. Same as always." The officer stepped away to make a call. 5 minutes later, he came back, his face grim. "We just checked. The cargo you're hauling isn't typical electronics. It's contraband that the FBI has been tracking." I gasped. "No way. I'm just a driver. Your boss, Marcus, is the head of the operation. The guys in Atlanta are his clients. I was stunned, my whole body trembling. I started remembering all those urgent jobs with unusually high pay that Marcus always personally picked drivers for. I was a new employee, always followed instructions, and never questioned anything. That's probably why he chose me. But why did they send a text changing the delivery location? I asked. Officer Adam gave a slight smirk. Because the FBI was staked out at the original drop-off point. Marcus was arrested 2 hours ago. The guys in Atlanta panicked and tried to divert the deal. I didn't know what else to say. I just sat there in silence. I felt both terrified and incredibly lucky. An hour later, a convoy of FBI vehicles arrived to take the cargo. I handed the keys to one of the agents. I wasn't charged with anything since I cooperated and wasn't involved. Your refusal to deliver and calling the police helped us catch the whole gang. We've been tracking them for months. Officer Adam patted me on the shoulder. The next morning, the news reported that Marcus and 7 accomplices had all been arrested. I was truly grateful, realizing how close I'd come to real danger. I'm starting with a different trucking company next week. This time, I've thoroughly checked their company history, their management, and every single shipping contract. I never want to step into a cab again without knowing exactly what I'm hauling and who might be watching me. I'm Joey, 41, and I've been a truck driver for 17 years. This one time, I was on a haul from Chicago to Phoenix. It's a pretty familiar route. Usually takes me 4 days round trip if I'm lucky, with no traffic or bad weather. That night, I left a truck stop in New Mexico just before midnight. I felt wide awake for the long stretch ahead, over 200 miles across the desert, completely isolated. I turned on the radio, just static and fragmented bits of an old country song. I turned it off and tried to find a podcast on my phone, but the signal was too weak out there. So I sat in silence, just the hum of the engine and the wind whipping past the cab. The dashboard clock showed I'd been driving for almost 3 straight hours. My body started sending signals of fatigue. That's when I saw her. A figure standing on the side of the road, in the middle of the desert, at least 50 miles from the nearest town. I hit the brakes, slowing from 65 miles per hour to 40. My eyes strained to pierce through the darkness, trying to confirm what I'd just seen. It was definitely a woman, young-looking, wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans. She was waving, a clear sign of distress. I hesitated. There are too many stories about drivers being robbed, beaten, even killed after stopping to help someone. But then, I thought about my daughter, if she ever got stranded in the middle of a desert like this. So I pulled over. When I rolled down my window, the girl gasped thanks. My car broke down about a mile back. I've been walking for over an hour and haven't seen anyone. My phone's completely dead. I took a moment to observe her. Are you okay? The girl nodded. She looked to be in her 20s, with neatly tied brown hair and no makeup. Looking at her, I saw no signs of intoxication or drug use. Her eyes reflected a very genuine fear. I opened the passenger door and told her to get in. Even though company policy strictly forbade picking up hitchhikers, I couldn't leave her stranded in the middle of the desert at midnight. As the truck started moving, I introduced myself as Joey. She replied softly, introducing herself as Sarah, and said she was on her way to Phoenix to visit her sister. We chatted for about half an hour. Everything she said sounded completely normal, but something felt off, an unsettling feeling I couldn't quite place. You said your car broke down about a mile back? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Yeah, about that. And you've been walking for an hour? That's right. A young woman walking a mile on a flat paved road wouldn't take an hour. 15 minutes at most. I glanced at her white sneakers, too clean for walking through a dusty desert. I tried to calm myself. Maybe I was overthinking things. We'll reach a gas station in about 45 minutes. You can make a call from there. Thanks, that's really kind of you. Not everyone would stop to help. This road's pretty empty at night. You shouldn't be out here alone at this hour. Not everyone has a choice. I glanced over. Sarah was looking at me, her grateful expression gone. Her eyes had changed, becoming sharp and calculating. My phone suddenly rang, startling me. It was an unknown number. After a moment, I picked up. A man's voice came through, identifying himself as the sheriff of the New Mexico State Police, asking where I was. The officer then asked if I was alone, his voice growing urgent. I quickly glanced at Sarah, who was still staring intently at me. Then I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. No. Stay calm and listen. We are looking for a woman. She is a suspect in a serial murder case. The security camera captured footage of her getting into your truck. I felt a cold sweat trickle down my spine. I quickly glanced at Sarah again. She was still watching me, but now her lips were curved in a strange smile. I stayed calm, listening to the officer's instructions, nodding and asking what to do next. He told me to keep driving, not to do anything to arouse Sarah's suspicion, then hung up. When I put the phone down, Sarah was still staring at me. Then she smiled softly. Who was that? My company. They're checking if I'm on schedule. Why would your company call at 3 a.m.? They work 24/7. I focused on driving, trying not to betray how terrified I was. You know, I can read your mind, Sarah said suddenly. I didn't reply, my hands tightening on the steering wheel. You're wondering how I killed that big man at the truck stop, aren't you? I tried to keep my eyes fixed straight ahead. It's easy. Men are always willing to help a woman in distress, just like you. Sarah slowly pulled out a switchblade from her pocket. The first time I did this, I was so scared, but after the third time, it became easier and even a little enjoyable. I asked her why she did it, stalling for time. Initially, I did it just for money, but gradually, I started to like the feeling of power, of seeing the fear in my victim's eyes. Like now, I see your eyes are full of fear too. Police lights appeared in the distance. Sarah's expression shifted. She turned to the window, watching the approaching lights. Then abruptly, she turned back to me, knife in hand, and ordered me to stop the truck. Sarah yelled at me to stop the truck, simultaneously pressing the blade against my throat. The cold metal terrified me, but I remained calm and slowly brought the truck to a halt. Sarah pleaded, saying she had no other choice. I assured her there were always other choices, but she just quietly stepped out of the truck, said something cryptic, and stood by the road, watching the police lights approach. I rolled down my window, looked at her one last time, and asked, "Why did you do it?" Sarah turned back, a sad smile on her face. There are things worse than death, and I don't want to face them alone. Then she turned her back and walked into the darkness. Just a few minutes later, the sheriff arrived. I shakily explained that she had gotten out and walked into the desert. An immediate search warrant was issued for her. The sheriff informed me that she was Sarah Keller, a serial killer who had murdered at least 6 truck drivers in the past 3 months. I was stunned and wondered why, if she had killed others, she had let me live. The sheriff shook his head. No one knows what she's thinking, but you're the luckiest man I've ever met. Sarah is still being actively sought by the police. I've continued my job, and I've learned that every decision must be carefully considered, because 1 minute of carelessness can lead to unforeseen consequences. I escaped the hands of a serial killer, and I still wonder about it. Sarah Keller's cold gaze will haunt me forever.